Hey everyone, welcome to the Stranger Than Fiction podcast, your place for true life stories that you only wish were fiction. I'm your host, Rashad Freeman, storyteller extraordinaire. And for the first episode today, we're going to be talking about a man out of Florida who goes by the name of Wade Wilson, aka the Deadpool killer, aka the Joker-faced killer. So I'm sure many of you have heard about this guy or seen some of the trial or the story on the news, but the story I'm going to tell you today is going to absolutely blow your mind because there's a lot more going on than what you've heard. So let's get to it. Wade Wilson was born in 1994 in Florida, where he was given up for adoption by his teen parents. He was adopted by a couple named Candy and Steve Wilson, who actually happened to be friends of his birth mother's parents that also went to the same church with her. According to classmates, Wade had a troubled childhood that consisted of heavy drug abuse and a strong disregard for authority. It was also reported that at a very young age, Wade told his adopted parents that he felt like he was going crazy. Now, it's said that Wade's adoptive parents were pretty good people, but this didn't stop Wade from getting into trouble, including stealing their car and disappearing for 3 days. Even still, all of his childhood transgressions would not lay the groundwork for what he would eventually be convicted of. Wade graduated from high school in Tallahassee in 2012 and almost immediately started getting into trouble, resulting in him serving time in 2013, 2014, as well as 2017 and 2018. Charges or allegations ran the gambit from child cruelty to firearms burglary. In 2015, he was arrested for sexual battery and kidnapping, but was later acquitted by the jury on those charges. In 2018, Wade was implicated in the Denise Williams trial, having said that he even offered to kill Denise Williams himself. In 2019, a former girlfriend of Wade's accused him of stealing her laptop and cell phone, and then about a month after that, of raping and kidnapping her. It is unbelievable that a character that had a past like Wade's was not already behind bars, but he was not. So on the night of October 6, 2019, a 25-year-old Wade went to Buddha Live, a bar in Fort Myers, with his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Melissa Montanez. Now, at some point during the night, Melissa and Wade get into a bit of an argument over something about Wade wanting to hang out with this guy there named Jason. Wade takes Melissa's keys and she storms off. Now, Melissa's car is a manual and Wade can't drive it, but he has the keys and Melissa is left without a car. I think she calls an Uber to get home, but Wade stays at Buddha Live. Now, he's there hanging out with Jason, drinking, doing whatever, and that's where he meets Christine Melton and her friend Stephanie. The four of them began hanging out, and they hang out at the bar until 2 a.m. when it closes. After that, they decide to keep the party going, and they head back to Jason's place. Now, if you've seen Wade Wilson on the news or caught any of the trial, you see him now with all these tattoos covering his entire face, kind of looking like that Joker character that Jared Leto played. But at this time in 2019, when all this is going on, he's a pretty clean-cut guy. He doesn't have that many tattoos. He doesn't have any tattoos on his face, and he just seems like a pretty charismatic, normal guy, which is why none of these people had the slightest inkling of what the night would entail. So they go back to Jason's house. Wade and Christine hit it off, and they vanish into one of the rooms for some alone time, leaving Jason and Stephanie to kind of hang out on their own out in the living room. After a while, Jason's ready to call it a night, so Stephanie and Christine call an Uber, and Wade jumps in the Uber with them, and they ride back to Christine's house. They hang out there for a little bit more, up until about 6 a.m. when Stephanie says she has to head home because she has a young son, and she also has work in the morning. So Stephanie and Christine say their goodbyes, and Stephanie leaves her with Wade, who up until that point seemed like a pretty nice guy. Now, later in the trial, Stephanie would say that Christine didn't have any issues with being left alone with Wade, and how Wade seemed like a perfectly normal guy, and how she would have never left Christine alone if she had any feelings about Wade at all, that he may be violent or anything like that. Christine and Wade continue to hang out at Christine's house until some point Christine goes to bed. Now, this is where the story takes a bizarre and terrible turn. Completely unprovoked and without warning, Wade decides to strangle Christine to death while she's sleeping. He then wraps her body up in some of the bedding or something, and his plan is to put her inside of the trunk of her own car. He realizes that he can't carry her to the trunk, so he decides to leave her there on the floor and take her car instead. But before he does that, he takes her cell phone and uses her face to unlock it so he can call his girlfriend Melissa. So he calls Melissa over and over, begging for her to meet up with him. She's still pretty upset about him leaving her at Buddha Live and taking her car, but eventually she agrees to meet up with him, hoping that she'll be able to get her car back. Now at this point, she's at work, which is at some spa, so she agrees for Wade to come meet her there. Wade jumps into Christine's car, the woman he just killed and left in her own home, and he drives to Melissa's job. Melissa's confused when he pulls up because she's expecting to see her car, not some random car that she doesn't even recognize, but she's even more confused when Wade jumps out of the car and starts attacking her in the front of her own job. Melissa fights back, but Wade is trying to drag her into the car. But again, this is broad daylight outside of her job. A crowd starts to gather and Wade jumps in the car, takes off. He starts heading back to Cape Coral, and that's where he drives past Diane Ruiz, who is walking to work that morning. He pulls alongside her and asks her for directions, and then he's able to use his charm or whatever it is to coax her into the car. Almost immediately he attacks Diane, punching her in the face, grabbing her around the throat, and pushing her into the seat in this savage beating. He strangles Diane for over 5 minutes. Then he pulls over into an empty lot and drags her out of the car. And that's where he realizes she's not dead yet. So he gets back in the car and runs her body over more than a dozen times. He'd later tell police that he was trying to make her body look like spaghetti. So he leaves Diane's body, covers it up with some leaves and branches, then drives to a place called Joe's Crab Shack in Fort Myers. When he gets there, he is confronted by the police, who have been alerted to Wade by his girlfriend for the attack on her at her job. Now at this point, they only know about the fight he had with Melissa in front of her job, not about any of the murders or anything else, so they're only going off of the allegations by Melissa. Wade plays dumb and the cop tries to detain Wade, but he just drives off. According to police reports, they didn't give chase at that time because the allegations by Melissa were only misdemeanor battery and not worth a high-speed chase. So Wade gets away and goes back to Cape Coral to the workplace of a guy he knows. He shows up, he's all frantic, he's shirtless, he has blood on himself, and he's telling the guy how he just committed 2 murders and he needs money to get out of town. The guy tells Wade he can't help him, so Wade leaves on foot, leaving Christine's car in the parking lot. But the guy calls 911 and reports what just happened to the police. They show up and they see Christine's car with blood on the seats from Diane's attack, and that is what eventually leads them to Christine's house, where they find Christine's body. Meanwhile, Wade is spiraling further out of control. Like I said, he leaves that guy's workplace and he heads into a neighborhood somewhere behind it where he decides just to break into some random house. Now luckily the people that lived there were out of town, but Wade breaks in and he gets himself some food and he drinks a 6-pack of White Claw. And you can imagine at this time, through the cloud of psychotic rage, Wade is starting to have some concern about his own well-being, about not getting caught, because he's now been contacted by the police and now he realizes, hey, they might be looking for him. And that is actually true because the police are starting to put things together. They have discovered Christine's body and Wade is suspect number 1. With no options left, Wade sits down in this house he just broke into, picks up the phone and calls his biological father. He confesses everything to him and begs him for help, to help him with money or get him a ride so he can get out of town. Now Wade had reconnected with his biological father when he was about 18, so they knew each other, but they weren't exactly active in each other's lives. His father would go on to say in trial that Wade normally called him when he needed money or he needed help with something. Even still, it's his son, so he's a little bit conflicted about turning his son into the police. You see, while all of this is happening, the police have gotten up to speed and contacted Wade's father. Eventually, Wade's father tells him he's going to send him an Uber to come pick him up, so he gets the address to the house that Wade is at, and instead of an Uber, the police show up. And this is where they arrest Wade. They don't immediately find Diane's body, but once they do, they charge him with both of those murders, among a number of other crimes. Now this all happened back in 2019, but there was COVID and a couple of other delays, so the trial got pushed out until this year. And the seemingly random murder of 2 women is strange enough, but But after Wade gets arrested and is in jail, this story gets even weirder. On the stand, Wade's father would testify that Wade was actually bragging to him when he called him about killing the two girls, that he was trying to share in this excitement that he had, and he wanted his dad to feel some of that excitement. Wade would also confess in jail numerous times to his father and to his girlfriend, Melissa Montanez. In a phone call with her, she accuses Wade of having sex with the women, and he replies, "I didn't have sex with them, I just killed them." At another time, she says how she thought Wade was going to kill her, and he tells her how he would never kill her, just the two women that he already killed. They also laugh about the fight they had at her workplace, with her telling him how he hit her pretty hard, and him congratulating her on her ability to, and I quote, "take a punch like a champion." So aside from all of the physical evidence, the witness testimony, they had the confession he made to his dad, the numerous confessions he made to his girlfriend while he was in jail. He even attempted to escape while he was in jail. So all of this combined, of course, Wade was found guilty of both murders and sentenced to death 2 times, just in case the first one doesn't stick. And that is where this story ends, with Wade Wilson being on death row in Florida, and still no one really understanding why he decided to kill these 2 women. Now, during some of the phone calls from jail, he did say a few times about how he took drugs at Jason's house, and maybe it was bath salts and things like that. But in the same light, he bragged about the murders and really didn't seem that bothered by him. So it's hard to say that drugs is what caused it when once the drugs were out of his system, he still didn't seem to care. Anyway, that is it for today. Thank you for watching the initial episode of Stranger Than Fiction. And if you know of any stories that you are interested about or would like to hear more about, please leave me a comment and I'll see if I can scrounge up some information and put together a little piece on them. I'm going to try to get this out once a week, every Wednesday. Until then, see you guys later.